Hello everyone, Hermano here. Welcome again to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to install Arch Linux dual booting with Windows 10, but on a separate hard disk. So the scenario is the following. So I'll type in shortly here fdisk-l to view my disks in the system. And as you can see, we have a SDB hard drive with 200 gigabytes. This is the second disk where I want to install Arch Linux. And then we have an SDA hard drive, which has already 4 partitions on it. We have SDA1, which is the Windows recovery environment. We have SDA2, which is the EFI partition. We have SDA3, a Microsoft Reserve partition, and SDA4, where Windows is actually installed. So I need to actually install Arch Linux on SDB on the second disk. And I want to install GRUB, the bootloader, on SDA2, which is the EFI partition where the GRUB bootloader is going to be booting. So let's clean up the terminal, and first things first, let's check our internet connection by typing in IP space A. And because I have an Ethernet cable here, I have already an IP with 125. If you have Wi-Fi on your system, you'll type in now Wi-Fi-menu. And when you hit enter, you will present it with a list of networks. You can select yours, enter the password, and you will have an IP as well. Once that's configured, let's clean up the terminal and move to our disks. So let me type in lsblk, as I want to have the name of the partitions and the disks here. So as I said before, I want to install Arch Linux on SDB, which is our second hard disk. So I will type in fdisk and then the disk name, so /dev/sdb, and hit enter. So first thing, I will create a GPT label by typing in G and hit enter. And then I will create the partition. So I need to create here actually only one partition, which is our root home partition, because I don't need to create an EFI partition as that exists already on the Windows disk as a SDA2. I will just need to mount later the EFI directory in Linux to that partition. So let's create the root partition by typing in N for new and hit enter. Partition number 1 default is okay, so I'll just hit enter here. First sector, I'll accept the defaults by hitting enter. And the same goes for the last sector, so I'll just hit enter to accept the default. And I'll remove this signature. There was already a signature there before, so I'll type in yes. And now we need to write this change to the disk, so I'll type in W and hit enter. Now I'll clean up the terminal and I'll type in again lsblk. And as you can see, we have now a new partition there, SDB1 for 200 gigabytes, which is ready to be formatted. So let's move to formatting. So let's format SDB1 by typing in mkfs for makefilesystem.ext4. This is the file system we want to format the partition to, and then the partition name, so /dev/sdb1, and hit enter. There you go. Partition is now formatted. I'll clean up the terminal and type in again lsblk. Now, this is a very important step. It's the mounting. So the first thing I want to do is to mount our root partition to the mount directory, because this is where the installation is going to be. So I'll type in mount, then the partition name /dev/sdb1 space /mount, and hit enter. Now we need to mount SDA2, which is our EFI Windows partition, into the EFI directory in our Linux installation, which is not existing yet. We need to create the EFI directory, which is going to be under the boot directory. So first we'll need to create the boot directory and then the EFI directory. So let's first create the boot directory by typing in mkdir for make directory. And that's going to be under /mount/boot. And then hit enter. Now I'll pull up the same command again with the up arrow and add a /EFI to create the EFI directory and hit enter. So now we can mount SDA2 into this EFI directory we just created. So let's type in mount /dev/sda2 space /mount/boot/EFI and hit enter. Now, if I type in lsblk again, you can see we have also our mount points there. So we have SDA2 mounted on boot EFI, and our root partition is mounted under the mount directory. So now we can clean up the terminal and we can proceed to the base install. So we'll type in pacstrap /mount, because that's where the installation is going to be. And then these packages, base, Linux, linux-firmware. And I'll install also editor because I'm going to need it anyway later. So that's going to be nano in my case, and hit enter. So now we just wait for the packages to be installed, and I'll be back in a moment. So there you go. The base install is done. So let me clean up the terminal. And now we can generate the FStab file by typing in gen FStab -U, then /mount, and then twice the major than sign, and then /mount /etc/FStab. Basically, we are telling the system to generate the FStab file, which is right now under the mount directory, and it will copy or create the file in our installation under the etc directory, and the name of the file is FStab. So when you're ready, just hit enter. Now, if we're going to have a look at this file, we'll see what's in there. So let's type in cat /mount /etc/FStab and hit enter. And as you can see here, we have our EFI partition and our ext4 root partition, so everything looks correct. I'll clean up the terminal. And now we can enter the installation and leaving the installer by typing in arch-root /mount. And as you can see, the login prompt changed now. We are now in the installation and not anymore in the installer. And the first thing I want to do now is to create the swap file. And to do this, I'll type in fallocate -l, and then we need to decide the size of the swap file. So I'll make the swap file 2 GB, so I'll type in 2 GB, and then /swap file, and hit enter. Now we need to change the permissions of the swap file to be readable, so we'll type in chmod for changing permissions, and the readable permissions are 600, and then /swap file, and hit enter. Now let's make the swap by typing in mkswap and then /swap file and hit enter. And now let's activate the swap by typing in swap on /swap file and hit enter. Now we need to put the swap file in the FStab file. So to do this, I'm going to use nano, the editor we installed before. So I'll type in nano /etc/FStab and scroll down to the empty space here and type in /swap file space none space swap for the file type space defaults for the options, and then space 0 space 0. That means the swap file doesn't need to be checked by every boot. And then Control O and enter to save the file, and Control X to exit the editor. So we created the swap file. Let's clean up the terminal. Now we can move to the time zone. So let's type in ln/sf/share/zone-info/Europe in my case, and /Zurich in my case. You replace these accordingly to your time zone. And then space /etc/local time. We're basically linking this time zone to the local time file, and hit enter. Now we can synchronize the hardware clock to the system clock. So we'll type in hwclock space --sys2hc, so system to hardware clock, and hit enter. And now we can move to the locales. So we need to type in nano /etc/local.gen. And we need to select the locale we need. So I want to have English US here. So I'll scroll down with the down arrow until I find English US. And I see there are 2 of those. And I need to pick the one which says UTF-8. So I'll just uncomment this line by deleting the hashtag. And then hit Control O and enter to save the file, and Control X to exit the editor. Now we need to generate the locales by typing in locale-gen and hit enter. And now we need to complete the locale.conf file by typing in nano /etc/locale.conf and hit enter. And we enter the string. So lang, all in capital letters, then equal, and then the locale you chose before. So in my case, it's en_us.utf-8. And then Control O and enter to save the file, and Control X to exit the editor. Now we can move to the host name. So let's type in nano /etc/hostname. You can give here a name to your machine. I'll call mine Arch and then hit Ctrl O and enter to save the file and Ctrl X to exit the editor. Now we need to also edit the hosts file. So let's type in nano/etc/hosts and hit enter. Move to the empty space and type in 127.0.0.1 tab localhost. Then the next line, ::1 tab localhost again. And then on the last line, 127.0.1.1. Then the host name, in my case, arch.localdomain. Then a tab and then the host name again. So Arch in my case. You replace this accordingly to what you chose before. And then again, Ctrl O and enter to save the file and Ctrl X to exit the editor. Now we can give a password to the root user. So we'll type in passwd and hit enter and select a new password and retype it. And now we can proceed to install the bootloader and some other packages. But first, let me clean up the terminal and let's type in pacman-s. So the bootloader is GRUB. And because this is a UEFI system, we need to install also EFI boot mgr, EFI boot manager. And then I want to install also some networking tools. So the first one is network manager. Then we have network-manager-applet. Then I have dialog. I have also wireless tools. Then also WPA_supplicant. We have also OS-prober. This is important in order to probe for Windows. And we have also mtools. We have DOS, FS tools. And then two development packages, which sooner or later you're going to need anyway. So the first one is base-devil, and the other one is Linux-headers. So make sure everything is written correctly, pause the video if you need to, and when you're ready, you just hit enter. Accept the defaults by hitting enter, and then again, accept the installation by hitting enter. So it's going to take again a moment to install everything, and I'll be back when it's done. So the installation is done. I'll clean up the terminal, and we can move on to the bootloader. So now we need to install GRUB. This is a very important step because we need to install it in the EFI partition in Windows. So again, let me type in first lsblk. I want you to pay attention to SDA2 because this is where we need to install the GRUB bootloader. And as you can see, it's right now mounted under boot EFI. So let's install GRUB by typing in grub-install space --target equal x86_64-EFI. This is the PC model. And then space --EFI-directory. This is the very important step. Equal, we need to put the directory where now the mount point is. So in our case is /boot/EFI. And then again space --bootloader-id equal grub. So make sure everything is written down correctly, and when you're ready, you just hit enter. No error reported. Now we can generate the GRUB configuration file. So we'll type in grub-mkconfig-o, then /boot/grub, and the file name is grub.cfg, and hit enter. And as you can see, there is a line saying found Windows Boot Manager on SDA2. And this is going to be added to the list of OSs we can choose from when we boot the machine. So the bootloader is now installed, and now I can actually exit the installation and return to the installer by typing exit. Now we can unmount all the partitions by typing in umount-a. I'm gonna get some errors here, which is fine. And now we can reboot the system. And if everything went well, we will be greeted by the GRUB bootloader where you can choose to boot Linux or Windows. So I'll type in reboot. And since this is installing VirtualBox, I'll see you back shortly on the bootloader. So there you go, guys. Here is the bootloader. Everything went correctly. I can see the Arch Linux and also the Windows Boot Manager there, so I can choose to boot whichever operating system I want to boot. And I need to finish still the Arch Linux install, of course, so I'll just hit Arch Linux and I'll see you back on the bigger terminal. So here we go, guys. We are back in the root installation, and we can proceed into the following point, which is activating the internet connection. So let's type in system ctl start network manager with capital N and capital M and hit enter. Now, if you have an Ethernet cable like me, if you type in now IP space A, you'll have an IP there, and I have one ending with 126. If you have wireless, you'll type in now NMTUI, and here you go to activate a connection. You'll see also here a list of wireless networks. You can select yours, enter the password, and you will be connected to the internet. So I don't need to do this since I already have an IP. And now the last step is to enable Network Manager so that the next time when a computer starts, it's going to be automatically started. So we'll type in system CTL for system control, enable Network Manager with capital N and capital M and hit enter. There you go. So I'll clean up the terminal and we can proceed to the next step, which is create a new user. So I'll type in user add -m space capital G, and then wheel for the group. This has to do with the sudo. We'll correct this later. And then the username you choose. So in my case, hermano, and hit enter. Now we need to give a password to the user. So I'll type in passwd and then the username and enter the password and retype it. And now we need to give the user sudo powers. So to do this, I'll type in editor equal nano, and the file is visudo. And hit enter. We'll scroll down until we find the first wheel group, which is this one here, says all equal all, and we uncomment this line by removing the hashtag, and then hit Ctrl O and enter to save the file and Ctrl X to exit the editor. So let me clean up the terminal. So let's move on to the graphics. I need to install graphics driver for the video card. So there are three scenarios here. If you have an Intel card, an AMD card, and an NVIDIA card. Let's start with Intel. So I'll type in pacman-s and xf86-video-intel. And I'm going to hit enter here and proceed with the installation by hitting enter. There you go. Now, if you have an AMD card, you replace Intel with AMD GPU and hit enter, and you will proceed with the installation. And if you have an NVIDIA card, you will replace the whole package with these two packages. The first one is NVIDIA, and the second one is NVIDIA-utils. And then you hit enter and you proceed with the installation. So let me clean up this command here. And now the next step is to install a display server. So let's do this by typing in pacman-s, and my display server is xorg. And hit enter. Accept the defaults by hitting enter, and proceed with the installation by hitting enter. There you go, that was pretty quick. So I clean up the terminal. And next we can install the display manager. So there are many choices here between the display manager also and the desktop environment. So in this example here, I'm going to install KDE, but I give you also the packages for GNOME. And so first let's install the display manager by typing in pacman-s. And because I want to install KDE, the display manager for KDE is sddm. If you want to install GNOME, then you will have to install GDM as a display manager. So choose the one you want, and when you're ready, you just hit enter and accept the installation by hitting enter. And that was pretty quick for me. So I clean up the terminal. And now we need to enable the display manager so that when the machine starts, it starts automatically. So to do this, we'll type in system ctl enable, and then the display manager of your choice. In my case, SDDM. If you chose GDM, you replace this with GDM, and then hit enter. So let's clean up the terminal again, and now we can proceed to install the desktop environments. So let's type in pacman-s. So if you want to install GNOME, you would type in now GNOME. That would be the first package. And the second package, which is optional, is GNOME-extra. So choose the packages you want to install. And if you want to install KDE, you will install Plasma. That will be one. Then you have also KDE-applications. It's an optional package to install extra applications. And I will install also xdg-user-dirs, as it will create directories for every user, directories like photos, videos, and so on. And if you plan also to update your system with the Discover Software Center, I recommend you also to install package kit-qt5. Without this package, you won't be able to update packages from the Discover Center. I'm not going to use that anyway, but I'm installing this package anyway just to have the complete system. And when you're ready, you just hit enter. Accept the defaults by hitting enter. And accept the defaults again by hitting enter. One more time default by hitting enter. One more time. And then proceed with the installation by hitting enter. So it's going to take a moment to download and install everything, and I'll be back when it's done. So the installation is done, and we can now reboot the machine. So if everything went well, you can launch Arch Linux and you will be greeted by the STDM display manager. Enter the password of your user we just created before, and I'll meet you back on the KDE desktop. So let's go ahead and type reboot, and I'll see you back in KDE. And we are in KDE, perfect. Now I'll pull up the terminal because I want to check for updates. So I'll type in a terminal, the console, and I'll go full screen here and increase the font size so that you can see better. There you go. And I'll type in sudo pacman-syyu and hit enter. Enter my password and hit enter. And there's nothing to do. The system is up to date. Perfect. So I'll clean up here. And this is the install of Arch Linux on a separate drive having dual booting with Windows 10. Now, if you want to remove Arch Linux and the bootloader, we'll have to switch back to Windows, and I'm going to show you how to do this. So if you want to do that as well, you can boot up your computer again and switch to Windows, and I'll meet you back at the desktop. So here is my Windows desktop, guys, and let me go to the disk management by right-clicking on the Start menu here. So here we have our disks. We have disk 0, which is where Windows is installed. We have our C partition here, and we have our Arch Linux install, which is installed here on the disk 1. So if we want to remove Arch Linux, we would right-click on this partition here and click Delete Volume and hit Yes. Now we have unallocated space here in this partition, so if we want to use this partition with Windows, we have to right-click on the partition here and click on New Simple Volume. Click Next on the wizard, select the partition size, I'll let the default as that is all the disk, and click Next. And assign a letter to it. I'll leave the letter E, which is fine, and click Next. And I'll format this as an NTFS file system. That's fine, so I'll just click Next and click Finish. So it's going to be formatting the partition shortly, and now the volume is ready to be used in Windows. Now we have still GRUB installed in the system here, and GRUB is actually installed in the EFI partition here, but it's not visible in Explorer. So we need to make this visible first. So to do this, I'll close up Disk Management, and I'll right-click on Start here, and I'll click on the Windows PowerShell, and I'll choose the administrator version. And the program I'm going to run now to do this is disk part. So I'll type in disk part and hit enter. And I want to list the volumes on the disk, so I'll type in list volume and hit enter. And as you can see, we have several volumes here. We have still volume 0, which is the Arch ISO, which is still in the system. We have volume 1, which is the recovery partition for Windows. We have volume 2, which is the C drive where Windows is installed. And we have volume 3, which is our EF5 partition FAT32 file system. And then we have also volume 4, which is the new volume we just created. So I need to select volume 3 because this is where GRUB is installed. So I'll type in select vol 3 and hit enter. Now I need to assign a letter to this volume so that it becomes visible in the system. So I'll type in assign letter equal, and then you can choose a letter which is still free in the system. In my case, I'll choose X and hit enter. Now if we go to Explorer and we go to the PC here, we'll see we have X here visible in the system. But if I double click on it, I get an error because I don't have access to this partition. Even I click continue, I'm still denied access. So I close up here and close up the window. And I'm going to start Task Manager. And I'm going to here expand on more details. And I'm going to click File and Run New Task. And then click Browse. And then click My PC here. And as you can see now, the X partition is here available. And if I double click on it, it's also accessible. Now I need to double click on the EFI folder here. And as you can see, we have three folders. We have the boot folder, we have the GRUB folder, and the Microsoft folder. So the only folder I need to delete here is the GRUB folder, not the other two, just the GRUB folder. So right click on the GRUB folder, click delete, and then confirm by clicking yes. And GRUB is gone. Now we can cancel off this window. We can cancel out this window here. We can close Task Manager. Now, last step, we need to remove the letter we assigned so that it doesn't appear anymore in Explorer. So we'll type in remove letter equal X and hit enter. And if we go again in Explorer, we'll see that our X partition is now gone. So we can close this up. And now we can exit this part by typing in exit and closing Windows PowerShell. So this is how to install Arch Linux on a separate drive dual booting with Windows 10. I hope you enjoyed the video, guys. And if you want to see more, make sure you like the video by clicking the like button below and subscribe to the channel if you want to be notified of future videos. And if there is anything specific you want me to cover or you have any question, please let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching and see you in the next one.